What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Pro v Pro. We haven't seen you guys for quite some time. We've missed you. And hey, congratulations to Justin. Hole-in-one today. Get this. It's his 14th hole-in-one. He complained, it's 14, but I hadn't had one in 6 years. Big fucking deal.
It's all a true story. All a true story. And yeah, I'm glad to be back. We got a huge week, but yeah, today was I get invited now that I've got my amateur stats back. I get invited to play as it's called a pro scratch. So I get to play as a scratch a lot of times. And it's fun. We were struggling and made a one. It was pretty fun. Great day. It's too bad we teed off at like 7:40 in the morning. So I made the whole one at like 11. So it was super early, but yeah. The guy right in front of me was a guy that I played mini tour golf with forever in the group in front of us. And I watched him hit it. He hit almost the identical shot and it like high lips and doesn't go in. And I was like, dude, you're so lucky. That would have cost you so much money if that goes in. And then the very next shot, I walked to the tee and hit pretty much the same shot and it went right in. And he was on the next tee and he was yelling, "I'll see you in the bar." So that's how it was at 11 o'clock.
How much did it cost you?
Not that bad because everybody's so serious. I don't understand that. Like everybody was so serious about it, and only a few guys saw it. And we were probably playing the hardest course in North Texas, if not. I would say bar none, the hardest golf course in North Texas. It's absolutely the most incredible place you'll ever. It's called Merido. It's been a couple of different clubs. This guy has sunk millions into it. When I was leaving, Will Zalatoris was walking in. When I was there playing the practice round last Thursday, Scheffler was there. Spieth, Scheffler, Zalatoris, Sebastian Munoz. Like, it's just tour players. Yeah. Taylor Moore. Josh Gregory is a good friend of mine that works with Zalatoris and Taylor Moore. And he was like, I came off a 9 green and, there he is. And I was like, yeah, there's Taylor Moore. That's the guy that made me quit playing golf. Taylor was like, "Hey, man, how are you?" And I was like, yeah, not as good as you are, but it's great. Yeah. And then to make a one there was pretty fun. So good time. I hit it the best. I'll tell you how hard it is. I've hit it the best I've hit it in 5 years, and I shot one over par. Wow. With a one.
Pretty good, yeah. We always love playing challenging courses like that. It's really funny, too, by the way. The whole concept of like paying for drinks when you get the hole-in-one. I remember my first hole-in-one came – I was too young to pay for everybody's drinks myself. My dad was like 3 groups ahead of me. So I get in, and apparently like my dad had just heard that I had a hole-in-one. He was like, "God damn it, that means I'm paying for everybody's drinks."
So we've got some guys here that do something that's pretty cool. So all of our clubs have like a hole-in-one club, right? So it's like usually a couple $1,000s of pro shop credit, right? It costs you $5 a month. And they buy everybody in their group. So like if 4 or 5, whatever, you buy the rest of the guys in the group a pair of shoes. So basically your credit, so you all 5 buy a pair of shoes with on the person's like pro shop credit, which I think that's a much better deal than going to spend $3,000 at the bar.
Yeah, I do agree. I've also heard of pools where like everyone at the club is in and you just whatever money has accumulated, like every time you play, maybe you put $1 in or something like that. And everyone at the club is doing that every time they play. So if you get the first hole-in-one in like 3 months, that might be $1,000 that you get. You still have to pay everybody drinks. But if no one's made a hole-in-one in a while, then you're probably still coming out on top. And then there was a guy at our club. The day after someone made one for like $2,500, he made one for like $2. It was so
That's great. I made one. We were members at Hackberry Creek for a long time, and I made one. And I remember the bar bill was something stupid, $1,200 or something, because we had 20 guys. It was one group, and I hadn't made one. We just kept drinking. And then I told my wife I don't even know if we were married yet, but I told her, and I think she picked me up that night from the club. And then literally 1 week later, I made another hole-in-one. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, you cannot do this again." So literally I didn't buy any drinks the second time. I was like, you guys overdid your welcome the first time. So
absolutely.
Yeah, one day. We've had a great day.
Yeah, I was about to say you can tell we haven't been on the show together to talk much lately because we could end up talking shop for half an hour, but we got to get to some Ryder Cup stuff.
Yeah,
So
for
let's
sure.
jump right in. I'll start here. What's your overall sense on this Ryder Cup, this matchup? Like, obviously, the line has moved from Europe being like plus 200 underdogs to pretty damn close to a pick 'em right now. What's your feeling on this Ryder Cup?
This is probably, I would say, I have the least sense of what's going on with this than maybe any Ryder Cup that I can remember, because I don't know if the line movement is everybody falling into the trap of Europe is setting the golf course up to fit the way they play, and everybody's bought in and they're truly trying to do that, or if they, if people truly believe, or Vegas in general is just trying to, they're overexposed at this point and they want some American money. I don't really know. It's very interesting. I mean, Zach Johnson has so much to lose and so little to gain here, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. If Justin Thomas goes out and plays great and everything's fine, if he goes out and plays terrible, the only person – Justin Thomas is going to tell the whole world, I've been trying as hard as I can all year. It's not like I can just golf as hard. I can't just all of a sudden shoot 65, right? Whereas, Zach Johnson is just going to have to lean on, hey, this is what I did and this is where I'm stuck. And even if Justin Thomas plays great, nobody's going to give Zach Johnson credit for that, right? So he's in a break even to lose situation with all of that. All the comments are really weird.
I agree, because I think if JT and Spieth do come out and have a lot of success, then it's going to be like, of course you take JT. He's been phenomenal in Ryder Cups. How could you not? So I'm with you there. I think my sense on the line movement is I think it's like mostly two parts to it. The first being, I think it's just a bit of a correction. Like, I think Europe never should have been as large of underdogs as they were. Always been really talented, especially on the top. But then I also think there's an aspect of, over the last couple months in golf, like Scheffler has really been struggling with his putter. Hovland just completely exploded down the stretch. You can make an argument that right now Europe has three of I think you could easily say they have three of the top four players in the world. Some might even argue they have three of the best players in the world, the three best for right here, right now. Now, I'm not sure that I agree with that, because I think Scheffler's probably in a better situation than most do. I don't think it's a guarantee to any stretch of the imagination that he's going to continue to struggle with the putter the way he has. We'll get into the specifics there. But yeah, so I think part of it is that they just never should have been that big of underdogs. And then part of it is the top three for Europe is really trending in the right direction, while Scotty's kind of struggling. So people are saying, you know what? Star power certainly leans Europe, depth leans the Americans. Maybe Europe needs more respect.
Yeah, and the other thing is, like, what Brooks Koepka are we going to get? Mm-hmm. Like, which one are we going to get? That's a huge deal this week, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Because he's not I'll use DJ as an example. DJ's just got a stoic personality, right? He's just going to go out there and take care of business. Koepka is not that way. He's a very outspoken, in charge. This is my thing. So what game are we going to get? And I also saw something where the U.S. has basically had nobody play this entire month outside of Justin Thomas.
Yeah.
There are very few. Maybe Homa played a couple of times. And I think, and if we'll probably talk about this later, but I think if the U.S. wins, the person that's going to win this thing for the U.S. is going to be Max Homa. I think he's very overlooked. I think the golf course fits him a little bit better than people give credit for. I like him on this grass type. I just think in general, he is going to be the one that everybody's going to be like, hey, he did it. He's the one that put us over the top. Obviously a team effort, but. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of a perfect segue, because the one thing that I really want to do on this show is talk through who we expect to be playing in what segments, and specifically, like, what do we think these first foursomes are going to look like? It sounds like maybe you think Homa's going to get an early call.
I don't know. I think that this is going to be a different year where I don't think you see anybody play 4. I think that everybody plays 3 and then singles. I think so. I was reading a deal today that they're saying this is maybe the toughest walk that any of these guys will ever do, like as far as professional golf. If you add a tough walk with wet, long rough, like, I mean, you're talking about real endurance, not just a little bit.
So Fred Couples today said Schauffele, Cantlay, Spieth, and Justin Thomas are probably going to play 4 matches. For one thing, it was surprising to me to hear him say that about JT and Spieth, because my inclination was you throw JT and Spieth out there because you have a lot of depth, so that if they do play poorly, specifically if Justin Thomas plays poorly, then you can say, all right, we've got the JT that we've had for the last 4 months or whatever. We don't need to play him much more, and that's fine. You can waste a roster spot when your entire team has this much depth. So weird to say that he's just going to play 4 no matter what. But my thought there is, okay, does that mean the best American, Scotty Scheffler, has a chance to play 5? Or does that mean that he's not in the group that's about to play 4? Maybe he's only stuck at 3 matches. So very interesting comments there. What was your read on that?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think they're really going to tell anybody what's going on. I wouldn't expect them to. I think that after 4 years ago, I think they started to realize that you've got to be a little bit fresh on Sunday. You can't be, these guys, no matter how good a shape they are, and walking 36 holes in one day it's hard. I mean, it's a lot of work, and then you add in a tough walk to boot. You got to play 36 holes on Saturday or whatever, and then go straight into playing singles matches on Sunday. Man, that's mentally, physically, especially if it's close and you're struggling a little bit, it's hard to get going.
How would you balance it though? Like DJ went 5-0 last Ryder Cup, and for those who were with us at FTN at the time, know we had a really, really successful Ryder Cup week on DraftKings. I had to take down that week in large part just because we rode the DJ and Morikawa pairing the whole way. We just rode we went against the narrative that the Americans can't beat the Europeans in the Ryder Cup, even though they were far more talented and were at a course that just perfectly fit their games. So back to the original question, like how do you balance the need to get some guys rest with what if somebody's just in the zone and you don't want to sit them, you don't want to take them out of the rhythm? Because like if you had sat DJ, for example, on Saturday afternoon, maybe he doesn't come back as strong in the singles because everything kind of resets when you sit, right? So do you think that when somebody is just playing extremely good golf and they want to be out there every single session, do you sit them, or do you just say, you know what, I'm going to let this guy play until he shows any sign of slowing down?
Well, I mean, that's Zach Johnson's job, right? You know these guys in the locker room. You know how they are mentally, physically fatigued. He has to. I mean, that's his decision. That's the stuff that these guys are made for. It's kind of, if you want to compare it to anything else, it's like nowadays with the running back at committee, right, and riding the hot hand type of deal. It's kind of the same idea where they go into games and they're like, oh, we're going to switch off series. And you got one guy that's, 8 for 75 yards and a touchdown. The other guy's got 7 carries for 6 yards and can't get anything going. It doesn't mean that guy's necessarily better. He's just better right then. And you just ride it out and as long as you can. So I think that you'll kind of see that. I don't know how you can limit a guy. What if Justin Thomas and Spieth are together and Justin Thomas is struggling and Spieth is playing really well? Do you move them around and sit Thomas and play Scheffler with Spieth, or a similar skill set to go with them? You have to at least have that in the back of your mind. You can't if Zach Johnson's going into this closed-minded, then we already lost.
Yeah, I agree with that. One thing I saw that was pointed out about the way this course sets up is for the alternate shot, you can set it up where one guy is going to have the majority of the approach shots, and then the other guy is going to have the majority of the like key putts and key drives. So
Leverage.
with that in mind, sorry,
the high leverage shots.
Yeah. So with that in mind, like I do feel like there's a pretty intuitive way to build these pairings, which is you have one guy who's strong off the tee and a strong putter, and then you have the other guy who just excels with the irons. So the very similar, by the way, to exactly why we were on the DJ and Morikawa pairing last Ryder Cup. Looking at the current U.S. roster, the first thing that came to my mind was Wyndham Clark and Morikawa. It doesn't look like we're going to see that. Wyndham Clark played his practice round with Scheffler, Burns, and Koepka. Morikawa played his today with Homa, Fowler, and Harman. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's, that the pairings are going to come from those groupings. Maybe they were doing best ball, four ball, if you will, practice today instead of the alternate shot. Who knows? But what's a pairing that you would like to see? Not necessarily that you think we're going to see, but just that one that you think would really pair well together.
So it just depends on what you want out of a team, in my opinion, because you have such different personalities.
Yeah.
I think the Homa Morikawa deal is basically a lock because they play the Zurich together. Mm-hmm. They've already done this, right? So they already know what to expect. And there's something to be said about that, right? You know what you're getting already. And Homa's trending really well. Like he was terrible terrible in the middle of the year there, but I mean, mm-hmm. seven top 25s in a row, or I mean, something ridiculous. Do you want, you have such different personalities. You have guys like Morikawa that's just going to be quiet and to their self. And then you have the Spieth and Thomases that are going to be a bit rowdier and try to get the crowd going. And so where do you put them in there? I personally would have loved to seen Koepka and Morikawa together. I think that the personalities to feed off each other would have been, it's a little bit different and it's a little bit out there, but I think that the way that they play the game together could be very intriguing.
Yeah, I like that thought quite a bit too. So with the Morikawa and Homa likely pairing, do you think what we're going to see is Spieth, JT, Cantlay, Xander? I think those two are locked in. We know that. And then Scheffler, Burns, Morikawa, Homa as the U.S. Opening?
I don't know that. I'm not sure that they're locked in on that Scheffler Burns yet. I think that's the one that, like, I'd probably be leaning away from that. Like, I just don't like that fit together. I don't like a guy that can get it going sideways with a guy that can start missing a lot of short putts.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And especially if we think that it is set up such that you have one guy driving the ball and putting and the other with iron play, I think you want Scotty to be the iron player of the group. Obviously, both guys are going to hit some key tee shots, so it's more like driving and putting and then driving and iron play. Scheffler's that latter, I think. So I would be wanting to pair him with somebody who's both a great putter, which Burns certainly is, but then also somebody who's going to consistently set him up well off the tee. Brooks Koepka, Wyndham Clark, I think both are really good options. You could even go to Harman. Yeah. So lots of options for the Scotty pairing. I think that's the one that seems like it's the most up in the air, as long as Scotty isn't behind closed doors saying, I want to play with my buddy Sam Burns.
Yeah, I would love to see Harman and Scheffler together, personally. Like, Harman just has that dog in him, right? He's got that fight. Like, he's not – and I think that Scheffler needs that.
I think Brooks has that too, though.
Brooks, yeah, I agree. I agree too. Brooks does too. But I just feel like Harman has that I have something to prove mentality.
Yep. Yeah.
And I think that goes a long way in this situation, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously no clue what's actually going to happen, but I just I think he's getting overlooked a lot, and I think it's unfortunate. I don't know.
Before we talk about the Europeans, I want to go over some comments made by Wyndham Clark, and more specifically, the reaction to these comments. So let me read you the quote from Wyndham Clark, because I think the full quote is really telling. He said, "I have the utmost respect for Rory. He is one of our great ambassadors of our game. He's obviously one of the best of all time, and he is still going so he can be that. I have tons of respect for Rory, and because of that respect, I also want to beat him. I like to think I am better than him, and I want to prove that." He got some backlash, I guess, for saying that he's better than Rory, even though that's not really what he said in the quote, right? Like what he said is basically, I believe that that I have the capability of being one of the best players in the world. And, even if it's not word for word what he said, we know what he means by that. We know that that's coming from a place of self-belief, and the type of self-belief, by the way, that you have to be able to perform well under this type of pressure. And then he made like some joke that like, yeah, because I said that now, chances are I'll like get paired with him in singles, and maybe I'll have to eat a slice of humble pie, something like that. And the comments are like, this guy's so arrogant. We can't even play him because he's so self-unaware of where his game's at, that sort of thing. What's your take on these comments and the reaction to them?
I mean, they're pretty ridiculous, right? I mean, he's a top 15 player in the world. Mm-hmm. He wants to be the best player in the world. He thinks he can go out there and compete. He's proven that when he has his A game, he's as good as Rory. Like when he has his A game, he is as good as Rory.
Maybe his comments make a little bit more sense to us as players, because the thing that it brought me to is this idea that, like, for years, I always felt like I was a better player than the results that I was getting. I just felt like, I'm just not quite getting everything out of my game. So maybe being able to empathize with that thought makes his comments a little bit more understandable to us. But I don't know. Like, to me, they just seemed like such normal, healthy comments. So like, just he's in a great state of mind. I couldn't believe when I was seeing the reactions on golf Twitter to what he said.
The only people that are going to react negative to that have never played in any tournament golf with any self. You know what? The only tournaments that people that are reacting negative to that, they've been a 22 handicap and trying to win the net division of their club championship. Like, you've never competed at any level if you think that anything he said is wrong. We literally had this conversation today at the lunch table of like 15 years ago, I was a different person. Mm-hmm. Like, I was a prick because I believed when I stepped on the first tee, I was the best player there. And I always had a chip on my shoulder. And I always felt like I never got everything out of my game when it became game time, right? At tournament time. It always seemed like I played better leading up to it or whatever, and just never got things to go my way, which is fine. I quit. I had a great career. It was fun. I got to do a lot of cool stuff. No regrets at all. But these guys, you have to have that mindset. You have to believe that you're the best player out there. And he's proven that he has the ability to be the best player out there. You would never hear Brian Harman say that.
Yeah, I also think there's a big difference between his comments and comments from like Patrick Reed early in Patrick Reed's career. Remember when he was saying like, I should be considered a top 5 player in the world already, that sort of comment? Because Wyndham Clark isn't at all saying that his accomplishments are anywhere in the realm of Rory's. He's not saying anything of that nature. No. He's just saying like his ability to win a golf tournament or just to perform and play well in the Ryder Cup right now, he believes is right up there with Rory's. He believes he's the best in the world, which he should, right? Yeah. He's not telling anyone how to view him in relation to Rory. He's just talking about how he views himself in relation to Rory. I think that's the key difference to me.
And not just that, but his A game is as good as Rory's. Rory just has his A game more often than Wyndham Clark does. If you want true facts of the way that they play golf, their A games are very similar. They can hit a 5-iron from 230 through the moon and stop it on concrete. They can fly their ball 330 yards. Their A games are very, very, very similar. But Rory has his A game more often.
Mm-hmm. I feel like we could debate that a little bit, because I might say that Rory's doesn't need his best to contend the way that Wyndham does.
No, I agree.
We're splitting hairs there. It doesn't really matter. The point is that Wyndham deserves, his spot on this team. He just won the U.S. Open, right? Like he should have won the belief in the world in himself.
He didn't just won; he beat the shit out of everybody.
Yeah, and he did it with high quality shots of every single caliber. Like
it wasn't a fluke.
He's earned his confidence. Is
for
basically
sure. But it doesn't even matter. Like, the problem that people would spend their time giving backlash on that, it just shows that those guys have no idea anything about golf and anything about mindsets and competing. And, like I love the underdog story. I love the journeyman story of, and not that he's a big journeyman type of, I mean, he's, obviously made it. But these other people that don't understand, that want to give him a hard time about it, it's embarrassing.
Yeah. All right, Europeans. We've got Rahm, Rory, Hovland, obviously at the top, then Hatton, Fitzpatrick, Rose, Hebert. To me, it kind of stops there, that you then have this pretty clear drop-off. Maybe you throw Tommy in that group as well. Very clear, I think, that while the Europeans have the firepower at the top with that big three, they lack the depth that the U.S. team has. Do we expect Europe to just ride these three superstars as much as possible, or are they going to be pretty content to mix in kind of everybody, not necessarily an equal amount, but without like kind of shunning anyone to just the singles matches?
So I think that Fleetwood and Fitzpatrick are coming in at way better form than they did previously to any other Ryder Cup. They're both playing way better, period. So I think that helps there with the depth, with a little bit of the depth issue. I also what's Hebert going to do? Like, he obviously has top level talent. For him to make this Ryder Cup team this fast, from no status and a kid in Lubbock, Texas, to now be a Ryder Cupper, like, do we really know much about him? I don't think we do. So,
the thing we know about him is that he's spectacular off the tee. He's got both length and accuracy, which just gives him like such a strong base of, what you're going to get from him off the tee. And then it also makes him a really intriguing pairing for a lot of these guys who maybe aren't the best off the tee, but are quite solid in the rest of their game. Number one, it looks like he's going to be playing with Hovland just based on the practice rounds. But if you wanted to like try and anticipate some other pairings that they'll have throughout the week, I think like one really intriguing one is you take Hebert, put him with Rose in alternate shot, where you can minimize the amount of drives that Rose is going to have to hit, and you just let him play off of Hebert's drives. Like that seems really intriguing to me to maximize Justin Rose and his both experience and success in past Ryder Cups.
So let me just throw a little twist into this. And I definitely have an opinion on this. How much do you think golf ball matters?
This is really funny. I just played in a member guest with my uncle this past weekend, and we had this exact conversation. I think it matters a ton. I would not be comfortable playing with a ball that I had never played before. It's for everybody who doesn't know why we're talking about this. Like an alternate shot, you have to play one ball. So you've got to decide together which ball you're playing throughout the round. It's not like you can go up to your teammate's ball in the fairway and swap yours in for his, so then you can play yours into the green. So this is an interesting discussion.
I think that if you at this point, you decide who's best, who's playing best, you obviously match up those of who fit the best. But I would lean towards a worse fit with the same golf ball over a better fit with different golf balls. I mean, my
Great.
equipment is set up around my golf ball.
Yeah.
If you gave me, so I play a regular Pro V1 right now. I'm not in love with it. That's just what I play. It fits what I do. If you play the X and we had to play alternate shot, or if you played a Bridgestone or a Strixon, whatever it may be, my equipment, my 7-iron might go from 178 carry to 172 or to 184. And not just the carry, but then how much is it spinning on a firm green? What's it going to feel like around the greens? Is it going to be clickier? Is it going to be more? Is it going to be softer? Like the factors for good players are through the roof.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this is probably the most under-discussed part of pairings. I'm really glad you brought it up. I also don't have much to add. Like I'm not familiar with what guys play. I know a lot of professional golfers are very much like obsessed with golf equipment. I've never been that way. I couldn't even like explain to you like the model of shaft that I have in a lot of my clubs. I know what they are, but I couldn't tell you why I'm using them. It's when it got fitted and that's what they put in my clubs and it worked. So that's what I play.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest deal, just understanding the golf ball, and Stephen Bowditch is a good friend of mine, and he knows everything to everything about all of this. He would have been great to have on to talk about it. It's he just opened a new place here in Dallas where they're doing club fittings and lessons and stuff. And I went in and got to like work on my driver, and I was like, dude, I don't understand, when I hit it in the center of the face, it spins more than everywhere else. And he's like, he tried all this different stuff, and he put 2 pieces of lead tape on my driver, and it took my spin from 2,700 to 2,200. He's like, that's it. He's like, you need to keep, everything's perfect, just go hit it this way. I mean,
What
just like what's that?
What part of the driver did you put the tape on?
It's like the bottom, like close to the face on the bottom, basically, and then just on the heel. So he tried to explain to me about the CG, the center of gravity, and how it changed, and this is why it was spinning so much out of the center, and it was intriguing. But just when you have a guy that has won on tour twice telling you about it, it makes it a lot easier. But anyway, back to the golf ball with the Ryder Cup stuff. Like, I think that this, I mean, if Burns and Scheffler play the same golf ball, put them together. If Harman and Burns play the same ball, if Harman and Scheffler, like if they play the same golf ball in alternate shot, Koepka and Scheffler, right? If you got guys that are playing the same ball. But the other thing is most people don't realize that literally there's like 11 versions of a Pro V1 on tour.
Yeah.
It's not just what we can buy in the shelves.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It sounds like one strategy that we should maybe take on DraftKings is find out who's paired together in alternate shot that don't typically play the same ball and fade them against a pairing that do play the same ball. That might be the strategy. So we'll have to do some digging, and we will post that analysis in the FTN.
I think it's an interesting edge that you probably won't hear on any other podcast. You won't hear that from anybody that's never played golf at a high level, right? It's just I think that the amount of importance is very underrated.
I mean, I can sit here and tell you, like, if I was playing with a different ball, I would be very, very uncomfortable standing over every single shot. The only ones that it wouldn't bother me on is putting, and even then it would bother me a little bit because I'd be looking down and I wouldn't be seeing the same thing that I'm used to seeing, which shouldn't be unnerving, but we are weird creatures as golfers, and it would be.
For sure. I agree 100%. So, and even if you've practiced with it and you know what it's going to do, you still practicing with it for 3 days is different than a year.
Yeah. That's, by the way, I think that's probably why we can take a lot from these pairings in the practice rounds. Chances are they've already picked whose ball they're using, and they're already playing with it in the practice rounds. So it's not like the first time they ever use the ball will be in the competition, but it's if you could adjust to a new ball in 3 days, you'd see guys try new things all the time. There's a reason why guys get married to a single ball.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like I said, they set up all of their equipment around that golf ball.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the DraftKings pricing. Um, Obviously, we can't say too much about like who we want to play, who we want to fade until we get the exact pairings. One thing I'll say is the last Ryder Cup, we had kind of a perfect storm for DFS success. Number one, we had the prevailing narrative being Europeans dominate Ryder Cups. We also had course fit being very clearly favored towards the Americans, so against that prevailing narrative. And then the third thing was we had very obvious value, guys who just clearly stood out for what they would be projected for. Paul Casey and Sergio Garcia, the obvious chalk from the European team. Some really cheap chalk, by the way. So there were some very easy ways to leverage this. Like Paul Casey was very clearly going to be the most popular player on the slate, or at least the most popular value on the slate, which meant who he was playing against in round one was going to be under-owned. Guess what? That happened to be Dustin Johnson and Colin Morikawa, the team that I was most on anyway. So everything kind of worked in our favor there. Obviously, we can't guarantee that everything is going to work in our favor this week. But if there's one thing that stands out to you that we want to be paying attention to for DraftKings this week, what is
it? Man, I think that you have to, for the DraftKings stuff, you have to go with the guy that you think is going to play in the matches where he's clearly better, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's not going to be just the more talented golfer that you're – I'd love to know what Zach Johnson's thinking, right? Who is he setting up for success? Because there's going to be certain guys that he's setting up for success over, hey, like I need you to go grind this out. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So like if he just throws somebody to the wolves in round one against let's say a Rahm Hatton pairing, if you then believe that like who he sends out in round two, round three, whatever, is dependent on what they've done to that point, like if he's just going to say, hey, I'm going to ride the hot hand, whatever team keeps winning, then you probably don't want the guys to play the Rahm Hatton pairing in round one, because you think, all right, well, they're less likely to get the win. So I do understand what you're saying there. For me, the answer kind of builds on what I was talking about with Casey from the last Ryder Cup. It's first, step one should be identifying what the field is going to do. And then step two is figuring out how to leverage that. Because the truth is, no matter how confident we are in anything about the Ryder Cup, there's a ton of randomness and a ton of variance here. It's just one match. It's a format that they don't play a lot of. So we really want to be outbuilding our opponents instead of trying to outpick them and just trying to guess exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, agree 100%. And it's just, I won't be overly involved in DraftKings this week just because of the variance. I think that you're right. If I was ever going to like max enter a contest, this would be the week where you just try to leverage against the field because there's so much volatility of what's going to happen. The bottom line is you have basically not all, but close to the best players in the world. Mm-hmm. And any of them can beat any of them on any given day. And who's going to react to what's seen the best, who's going to be, and then, who's going to get the better bounces. There's so many variables with golf. Who's going to hold more 15-footers? You can call it whatever you want. There's just a point of it that, you're going to get. Rory might out golf you, but there's other guys that might just get better bounces or hole more putts or whatever the luck factor may be.
I'd say another strategy to keep in mind is if you do believe that a pairing is going to be together kind of throughout the entire Ryder Cup, then if you're considering either of them for the captain spot, we can be pretty good about predicting who will be higher or lower owned. So, for example, like Patrick Cantlay, $13,500, Xander Schauffele, 12.3. They're probably going to play 4 times together and then each sit once and then play singles. So, yeah, you need Cantlay then to make up for that $1,200 difference in one singles match. Yeah. But he's probably going to be significantly lower owned in the captain spot than Schauffele as a result. And so if the optimal lineup comes down to Cantlay in the captain spot, Schauffele as a flex versus Schauffele in the captain spot, Cantlay in the flex, and one of those guys is 20% owned in the captain and the other's 5%, that's a really, really easy decision to put Cantlay in the captain spot and just hope that money doesn't come into use. So that's another thing that I'll be keeping in mind. Basically, every part of my strategy this week is to find a way to leverage the field much more than just trying to figure out what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, you still have to pick your winners, right? You pick your winners and then leverage the field from there. So you're leveraging the field, but you're using, your knowledge and your numbers to pick who's going to be there, right? You can't use a guy that's going to play 2 matches in your captain spot. You just can't do it. And, there's probably 8 guys here that are going to do that. Now, that being said, is a guy like Abear maybe your best captain playing with Hovland and they're going to play all the matches together? I mean, like if they play the same golf ball, they might play every single match together.
Yeah, they could.
And then
I'd also say there's a really good chance that, like, if we had to guess right now who the lowest owned stud is going to be, I think we would all agree. If we look at 12.3 and up, so starting at Schauffele, and Tommy and Brooks probably aren't going to play, the field probably is going to believe that they're guaranteed 4 rounds or something like that. But it sounds like Schauffele, Cantlay, Hovland, Rahm, Rory, all pretty much guaranteed for 4 rounds. We haven't heard the same assurance for Scotty. So being the most expensive player in the field, I do think there's a chance that Scotty's going to be extremely underowned in the captain spot. If I had to guess right now who will be my captain, I would say Scotty. But of course, this can all change once we actually get pairings and once we actually have some ownership projections to work with.
Yeah, it's an interesting deal to me because you get some of these guys, like we were talking about riding the hot hand. Like a guy like Wyndham Clark being that low priced, if he gets hot, like is Zach Johnson going to be afraid to run him out there?
I don't know. I mean, to me, like Clark fits so well with so many guys, particularly the iron players like Morikawa. I would love to have Wyndham Clark play a bunch, and I would love, especially if people are not going to play Wyndham Clark because they hate his comments, let me play him. That's fine.
Yeah. I just think there's some of those guys down there that are their price is so low it doesn't make any sense. And I think Wyndham Clark's in the 5s. Like Max Homa's too cheap. There's just some of these guys that like have elite ability that everybody's going to lean on the big names. So if you can get one of those guys to get hot and then Zach Johnson to commit to riding them out, that would be the key. Like I said, it goes back to, I wish I knew what Zach Johnson was thinking. Like, is he going to ride the hot hand or is he going to just stick to a game plan?
Yeah. Which also brings us back, by the way, to like this whole concept of we just need to wait and see what people are doing, because one of the potential narratives is going to be, I don't want to take any of the Americans in that range because they have so much depth that I have no confidence that they're going to play a bunch of rounds. Whereas someone might feel more confident that, Rose is going to play 4 times or at least 3 times, right? Like a lot of these Americans wouldn't surprise us if they only played once or twice. So in that scenario, maybe there is an opportunity to just say, you know what, if the Americans win big, then it doesn't matter how often a European plays. If he's going out there and just having success by getting one win in 3 starts, something like that, then who cares? So maybe we just stack America in that way, but it's all going to depend on what the field does. We don't have a good enough sense yet to really direct you on how to leverage the field. So you're just going to have to come back to chat. I can also say Josh already has content out. He's going to have content all week. I will have my hot takes article on Thursday with the Friday start. And, one other thing, we're going to have a ton of prize picks action for PJ. All of our prize pick stuff has now been moved to the Discord. So it used to be in the free tracker. We have now moved that into the Discord. So unfortunately, you have to be a subscriber of FTN Daily, but let's be honest, you should already be one. So we will see you in Discord for the prize pick stuff.
Speaking of Discord, I just got a notification that somebody just told me they hate me from the bottom of their heart for making 14 hole-in-ones. I didn't get to see who the name was. I just saw it pop up on my screen on the way by, and I was like, all right, fair enough.
It is fair. I've got some catching up to do. I thought I was at a pretty good start with 4, but I've got to play a little more often than I have to catch you.
I'm a lot older than you are too. So
You're not that much older. I'm not on a nearly good enough pace to catch you.
So I made all of mine. And this is true. Going back to the old one, I made one in 06. I didn't make another one. I didn't make another one till 2015, and then I made 12 from 2015 to 2017.
Were you playing like 60-yard holes? What's going on with that?
Well, I mean, I think at least half of my 14 are in actual tournament play, like not just out playing, like actual.
2 of my 4 are, yeah.
And so I made all of them together, and then I haven't made one for 6 years and made one today. So they come in bunches. So I'm hoping we get another bunch. So maybe I got more stories soon.
Poor you in that 6-year drought. How did you make it through?
It was frustrating. Don't worry. I didn't like it. I had a couple that I was like, I made one and I didn't count it because I hated it. But you remember those stupid foam noodles that they put in the bottom of the holes? Mm-hmm. We were walking, and I made one with a 6-iron, and it literally rolled over the foam hole and went out. And I was like, yeah, I'm never making another hole in one my whole life. So I'm glad I got that monkey off my back.
I had one on the little foam roller thingy too, and from the tee box, we couldn't tell if it was in or not because of that. And so we're walking all the way down this big giant.
Oh, you're stayed on it? You're stayed on the foam?
So it landed right in front and like just trickled over the edge. So the hole, it's the 10th hole at my home course, Ledge Rock, here in Pennsylvania, and it's basically down a mountainside. So you're like looking from up above, so you have a really good view of exactly what's going on. My first hole in one was on the same hole. Why 50% of my hole in ones have come on this extremely difficult, crazy downhill par 3? I couldn't tell you, but yeah. So we're like staring down, like, is that on the roller thing? Because we could tell, like, it didn't disappear, right? So we could still see the golf ball, but we were pretty sure it was in, and fortunately it was.
Yeah, mine rolled over, like it hit the foam and bounced out, and so I didn't count as a 1. And I was like, I'm never making another one. That was my ultimate jinx. So.
That's funny. That's really.
And
funny.
I didn't. Literally, that was in. I mean, what year was that? I mean, what year was COVID? I mean, it's been multiple years, and I was like, yeah, I'm never making another one. So we're good now. I'm not worried about it.
Have you been doing much football stuff? Prize Picks, DFS, anything so far?
I've done a bunch of DFS. I've had all the right pieces. I just haven't got it to kind of go my way. I've had a lot of success in NASCAR. Nice. Which is NASCAR and golf are my two that I probably spend my most time with. But it hasn't been good. Last year I had a really good year in NFL, and this year I can't figure it out. And it's been, like I said, I feel like a lot of weeks I've had the right pieces. I just can't get them all to mesh together. And man, I had a horrible week too. So.
Well, maybe what you should do for NFL is just start playing Prize Picks for it. Just had a 100-unit day on Sunday. I had a 90-unit day on the 1 and 4 o'clock games, and then hit another 6 for 6 on the Sunday night game. So we're flying on Prize Picks over at FTN. So make sure, if you're not yet a subscriber, you join in. Justin, you should start tailing it too. Maybe your NFL stuff will pick up. But hey, it's been a really fun season so far. And really excited to be back here talking golf with you, man.
Yeah, for sure. I can't wait to do it more. I definitely missed it, and we're going to try to grow this audience a little bit, and maybe we'll try to bring on some of the tour guys and just chat. And look forward to it. We need everybody to kind of spread the word of what's going on here. I think we can really grow this show, and we want some, we want some outside people talking to us and telling us what they want to hear about and stuff like that. So.
Absolutely. We will have some really exciting plans for this upcoming PGA season. We will be back with Pro v Pro, I believe, in the January season. So we probably won't be back until then, but we're going to be full go once the 2024 season starts up. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. No, it's kind of out of the blue. Hey, Pro v Pro is back this week. What's going on? But Ryder Cup week, man, this is going to be so much fun. Ryder Cup and NFL football at the same time. What could possibly be better? Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll catch you next time.